He called her baby right in front of my parents, our friends, and our son. I swear, the entire room went quiet. Forks stopped clinking. Conversations just died. My mom froze mid-laugh, and I caught my best friend Nicole slowly turning toward me, her eyes wide like she couldn't believe what she just heard. We were sitting around our Christmas dinner table. Our home. Our tradition. I'd been cooking since 6 a.m., decorating since the night before. And this man, my husband, calls another woman baby at my table, with our son sitting right there? I felt the floor drop out from under me. Let me ask you something. What would you do if your partner slipped up and exposed their entire affair with just one word? Would you stay calm, or would you flip the table? Drop a yes or a no in the comments. I really want to know what you'd do in that moment. And while you're here, hit that like button if you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, and subscribe if you're ready to hear how I packed my life and disappeared like a ghost. Because this story isn't just about one dinner gone wrong. It's about betrayal, lies, and the moment I finally chose me. So yeah, let's rewind a bit. Before the mess. Before the Christmas dinner disaster. Before I ever had a reason to doubt him. Kason Hobbs wasn't always that guy. You know the type, smirking, smooth-talking, phone always on silent, master of excuses. Nope. When I first met him, he was charming. Not fake charming, real. Or at least, I thought it was real. We met through mutual friends. It was one of those casual Friday night things. My friend Nicole had dragged me out of the house after a long week of work. I didn't want to go. I was in leggings and no makeup and a mood. But then, there he was. Kason had this easy smile. Confident but not cocky. He made everyone laugh. I remember thinking, this guy lights up a room. He offered to walk me to my car, and we ended up standing outside in the cold for almost an hour just talking. He didn't even try to kiss me. He just listened. I fell fast. And I fell hard. He called me the next morning. Sent me flowers the next week. Showed up at my office during lunch with Thai food because I mentioned it once in passing. It was storybook romance stuff. The kind you think only exists in those cheesy movies you pretend not to like but secretly binge on rainy weekends. 6 months in, he told me he loved me. 8 months in, we moved in together. A year later, we were married. Everyone said we were perfect. And honestly, for a while, we really were. Sunday brunches. Lazy mornings in bed. Inside jokes. Random kitchen slow dances. He'd brush a strand of hair out of my face and say things like, "You have no idea how lucky I am." And God, I believed him. We built a beautiful life. I had a solid job in marketing. He was growing his own business, something to do with real estate and flipping properties. We bought a modest home in a nice neighborhood. Nothing flashy, but it was ours. Our little safe space. We hosted game nights with friends. Jasper, Nicole, Bexley, Barrett, they were regulars. I loved it. I lived for those nights. Every year, I hosted Christmas. It became my thing. Full-on Martha Stewart mode, tree perfectly decorated, custom name cards at the dinner table, matching pajamas for everyone. Kason loved that about me, or at least, he said he did. But now, looking back, I think he just loved being seen loving me. He liked the image of us. The pretty, polished version. Not the messy, real-life stuff. The cracks didn't show overnight. They started small. Subtle. He got busier. Always on his phone. Business calls at odd hours. He stopped asking me about my day. Sex slowed down. Affection got lazy. Like a quick kiss on the forehead was supposed to replace connection. I brushed it off. I blamed work stress. Burnout. Told myself every couple hits a rough patch now and then. That if I just gave him space, he'd come back to me. I held on tighter when I should have started letting go. And maybe that's the part that hurts the most, not that he cheated, but that I made excuses for someone who wouldn't have done the same for me. We used to laugh about couples who fell apart. That won't be us, we'd say. We're solid. But love doesn't disappear overnight. It fades. Slowly. Quietly. And sometimes, while you're busy looking the other way, it starts growing somewhere else. With someone else. And her name? Was Lacey. Freaking. Castro. You ever look back on something and realize all the signs were there, like screaming at you? Yeah. That was me with Kaysen. At the time, though, I didn't see them as signs. I saw them as stress. Or coincidence. Or just me being dramatic. But looking back, man, those red flags were waving in 4K. It started with his phone. Now, Kaysen wasn't the kind of guy to guard his phone when we first got together. If I asked him to check the weather, he'd toss it to me without thinking. No passwords. No panic. Nothing to hide. But slowly, things changed. First, he added a passcode. Then, his screen started dimming faster, like after 5 seconds of inactivity, boom, black screen. I noticed he started taking calls in the other room. Long ones. Whispery ones. I'd walk in and hear, "Yeah, I'll call you back," and then he'd hang up real quick and act like it was nothing. I remember one night, we were watching a movie. I was curled up next to him, and his phone buzzed. I glanced at it out of habit, not even trying to snoop, and all I saw was a heart emoji next to someone named Elsie. He tilted the phone away so fast, I swear he almost threw his back out. I asked, "Who's Elsie?" He laughed, like, really forced, and said, "It's Lacey Castro. She's just someone from the office. She's helping on a project." I didn't love that answer, but I let it go. Why? Because I trusted him. Or maybe I needed to trust him. I didn't want to be the paranoid wife who flipped out over a contact name. But things kept stacking. He started dressing a little too nice for work. Kaysen was always presentable, but suddenly he's ironing shirts on a Saturday just in case he stops by the office? He stopped tagging me in his Instagram stories. Like out of nowhere. I brought it up once and he said, "Babe, people don't even look at that stuff. It's just work-related." Cool. But Lacey was in those stories. At happy hours. Leaning in way too close. Then there were the late nights. First it was once a week. Then twice. Then suddenly he was working late 4 nights a week. I'd make dinner and eat alone. I'd wake up and he'd already be gone. He always had an excuse. And I always wanted to believe him. Then came the day I found the receipt. He left it in his car's cup holder, which is wild, because Kaysen was obsessive about his car being spotless. But there it was, a dinner for 2 at this really nice sushi place we'd never been to together. 2 cocktails, a bottle of wine, dessert. It wasn't a business dinner. I knew that instantly. When I asked him about it, he barely blinked. Just said, "Oh, that was with Elliot. He's going through a breakup, I was just keeping him company." I wanted to believe that too. But deep down, my stomach dropped. You know that cold, sinking feeling? That internal "this isn't right" alarm? Yeah. It rang loud that night. Still. I stayed. I stayed because we had a life. We had mutual friends. A history. I kept telling myself, if he was really cheating, I'd know for sure. But cheaters don't always leave obvious clues. Sometimes, they slip up slowly, with little things. Things you don't see until it's too late. And sometimes, they show you exactly who they are in the middle of your living room, with their hand in someone else's back pocket. That moment was coming. I just didn't know it yet. But first, I had to meet Lacey face to face. And let me tell you, that changed everything. Okay, so let's talk about that day. The day I met Lacey Castro in person. Kaysen had been talking about her a lot at that point, always casually, always with some reason. Lacey had this great idea at work. Lacey crushed the Henderson pitch. Lacey thinks we should rebrand this summer. It was Lacey. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, people talk about coworkers all the time, right? Especially when they're working closely. But the way he said her name? It felt familiar. Too familiar. So when he said, "Hey, we're having a little mixer at the office, why don't you come by?" I was like, yes. Absolutely. Let's meet this Lacey. I remember what I wore, this green sweater Kaysen used to say made my eyes pop. I walked into that little office party with a smile on my face and a knot in my stomach. And then, there she was. Lacey Castro. The coworker. She was stunning. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not insecure about how I look. But this woman walked up like she was floating. Tall, perfect blowout, red lipstick, that I know something you don't smirk. And the way she hugged Kaysen? Yeah. Too much. She wrapped her arms around his neck and gave him this slow, lingering squeeze. Not inappropriate, but not appropriate, either. You know what I mean? Then she turned to me, all bubbly, "You must be the beautiful Everly. I've heard so much about you." Her tone was sweet, but her eyes? They scanned me top to bottom like she was taking inventory. I smiled and said, "Nice to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you too." Which was true. Way too much. The rest of the night was awkward. I kept trying to convince myself I was overreacting. That I was just being territorial. But every time I looked at her, she was either standing way too close to Kaysen, touching his arm when she laughed, or giving me those side eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. And Kaysen? He didn't even seem to notice. That night in the car, I brought it up gently. I said, "Hey, is there something going on with you and Lacey?" He practically laughed in my face. What? God, no. She's just like that. Super affectionate. That's just her personality. I nodded. Swallowed my pride. Let it go. But my gut? It didn't let it go. From that point on, everything she did grated on me. Her name popping up on his phone at midnight? Just work. Him taking weekend meetings now? It's the busy season. We started fighting more. Silly things at first. Then deeper stuff. He'd cancel date nights last minute, saying things like, "You know how it is right now, babe. I don't have time for dinner dates every week." But he had time for her. I knew it. I knew it in my bones. Still, I tried to hold on. I doubled down on being the cool wife. I gave him space. I stopped checking his phone. I even stopped bringing up Lacey. Because I didn't want to be that woman. The one who nags. The one who's always accusing. I told myself if I just stayed supportive, he'd come back to me. But here's the thing. You can't compete with someone your partner's already chosen in their heart. Even if they haven't admitted it out loud yet. And I was about to get hit with a truth I couldn't unsee. Because Lacey? She wasn't just the other woman. She was about to show me exactly how long she'd been playing this game behind my back. You ever have a moment where everything you've been ignoring, brushing off, trying to make excuses for, suddenly smacks you right in the face? Yeah. That was this day. It was a Thursday. I remember because Kaysen had a dinner with clients, and I was home eating leftover lasagna with our son, Jasper, watching Finding Nemo for the 100th time. Halfway through the movie, I get a DM from Nicole Livingston, one of the wives from Kaysen's office. We weren't super close, but we'd chatted at a few events. She always seemed chill, real, and not into drama. Her message said, "Hey, random question, but are you okay? I saw something weird earlier." My heart dropped. I typed back, "What do you mean?" She didn't reply right away. And you know how your brain just spirals in that silence? Finally, she sent a screenshot. It was from someone else's Instagram story. One of those blurry club pics, low light, loud music, people dancing in the background. Right in the middle was Kaysen. And Lacey. Close. Too close. He had his hand on the small of her back. She was laughing, leaning in. Her face buried in his neck like she was whispering something. The caption? Work husband and wife smiling face with heart eyes. I felt my stomach twist. You know that feeling where your chest feels too tight for your lungs? Like breathing itself becomes a task? I stared at it for a full minute. Frozen. Numb. This wasn't a client dinner. This wasn't business. This was them out in public, at a bar, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Like I didn't exist. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I wanted to believe there was some explanation. So I screenshotted it. Sent it to him. And just said, "Thought you had a client dinner?" You know what he replied? Just one word. Chill. That was it. Chill. I stared at that message like it was poison on my screen. I didn't respond. The next day, I didn't even say a word when he came home. I just watched him. Studied him. And I swear, he didn't even look guilty. He was relaxed. Like nothing was wrong. That weekend, I ran into Lacey. Completely by accident. I was at Barrett and Nellie's barbecue, mutual friends of ours, and guess who walks in 15 minutes late in a skin-tight sundress? Lacey. Hair curled. Lip gloss poppin'. Wearing these sunglasses she didn't take off the entire time. She didn't know I was gonna be there. I could tell by the way her smile flickered when she saw me. But oh, she recovered fast. She walked up to me, gave me one of those fake air kisses and said, "Everly. Long time no see. Where's Kaysen? Thought you'd be joined at the hip like always." I just smiled and said he had something more important to do, apparently. And then she slipped up. She laughed, kind of nervous, and said, "Oh, you mean like that jazz bar on Thursday?" My face must have said it all. Because she froze. She knew. I hadn't told her what day Kaysen said he had a client dinner. She just outed herself. Her eyes widened a bit. And then, like a pro, she tried to cover it up. "Oh wait, was that Friday? Sorry, my week's been such a blur." Too late. I saw it. She saw it. She turned and walked away real fast, suddenly needing to find the bathroom. And me? I left. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't cause a scene. I just picked up my purse, walked to my car, and sat behind the wheel while everything I'd been trying not to believe came crashing down on me. It wasn't in my head. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't crazy. He was cheating. And she was right there, proud enough to almost brag about it. That was the moment I knew something had to change. That I couldn't keep pretending things were normal. But I still wasn't ready for what came next. Because Kaysen? He had one more betrayal in store for me. And this one? It happened in front of everyone I loved. So here's the thing about Christmas at our house, it's my thing. I go all out. I'm talking lights everywhere, pine-scented candles, hand-lettered place cards, matching pajamas for the kids, Christmas playlist on shuffle, mulled wine in the crock-pot, the whole Hallmark movie package. And this year? I tried even harder. Because a part of me, the part still holding on to hope, thought maybe this would bring us back. That having everyone under one roof, smiling, laughing, sipping cider, maybe it would remind Kaysen who he married. What we built. Maybe, deep down, I thought I could still save us. I spent 2 days prepping the house. My mom and dad flew in from out of state. Jasper was practically vibrating with excitement. And I had this little red velvet dress picked out, the same one I wore the first Christmas Kaysen and I spent together. Thought it might spark something, you know? But then, Kaysen dropped his little surprise. Hey, is it cool if I invite a few coworkers? They don't have family in town and I figured, the more the merrier, right? I blinked. Which coworkers? He shrugged like it didn't matter. You know, the usual. Elliot, Barrett, maybe Lacey. That name again. That name that made my skin crawl now. I wanted to say no. I should have said no. But I didn't want to start something before people even showed up. So I fake smiled and said, sure. Whatever you think. Biggest mistake of my life. Fast forward to dinner. The table's packed, my parents, friends from the neighborhood, Jasper at the kids' end, my best friend Nicole, who knew everything but promised to keep it cool, even a few of Kaysen's friends from work. And then, she walked in. Lacey Castro. Wearing a body-hugging emerald green dress and heels too high for snow. She brought wine. She brought cookies. She brought that same smug smile like she owned the whole damn room. I saw my mom's eyebrows shoot up. Nicole gave me a look across the table like, you okay? I nodded. Lied with my face. Dinner was served. Laughter. Conversations. Me? I was running on autopilot. And then, it happened. Kaysen stood up to help pass dishes. Reached across the table. Handed Lacey a plate of honey-glazed ham. And with the most casual, affectionate voice you could ever imagine, he said, "Here you go, baby." That's it. 2 little words. But everything stopped. Forks froze halfway to mouths. My dad blinked like he didn't hear right. My mom literally choked on her wine. Nicole's jaw dropped. Even Jasper looked up from his mashed potatoes, confused. And Lacey? Lacey turned beet red. I stared at Kaysen. He didn't even realize what he'd said at first. Just smiled, then glanced around like, what's the big deal? When he saw my face, his own smile dropped. He tried to recover. He laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Oh come on, it's just a phrase. Everyone calls their friends that." You know what the room felt like? Silence. The kind of silence where everyone's pretending not to see the car crash happening right in front of them. I stood up, slow and calm. Picked up my napkin. Laid it on my plate. Didn't say a word. And I walked straight to the kitchen. The tears didn't even wait for the door to swing shut. I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles went white. I didn't want to cry. Not here. Not tonight. But I couldn't stop it. It wasn't just about the word. It was the months of lies. The late nights. The she's just a coworker. The Instagram story. The hug at the office party. The DM from Nicole. The way he looked at her. And now, right in front of my parents, our friends, our son, he called her baby. I heard the door creak behind me. Nicole walked in, silent, and handed me a tissue. "You don't deserve this," she whispered. And I nodded. Because for the first time, I believed her. Kaysen came in a few minutes later. Started saying things like, "You're overreacting, and don't make a scene, and let's just get through dinner, okay?" I looked at him and said one thing. "Get out." He blinked. "What?" "Take her. Take your coworker. And get out of my house." He tried to argue. But Nicole stood next to me. Then my dad came in. Then my mom. He saw he was outnumbered. He left. And Lacey? She didn't even make eye contact with me. Just kept her head down and followed him out like the coward she is. The rest of dinner was quiet. Heavy. But when it was over, and Jasper was asleep upstairs, and the dishes were piled in the sink, I sat on the couch in my red velvet dress and thought, I'm done. No more second chances. No more hoping. No more pretending. This was the moment I stopped loving him. And the moment I started loving me again. He came back. Not right away. Not after dinner. But later that night. The guests had all trickled out, giving me those careful hugs, you know, the kind people give when they're not sure if you're going to fall apart or light the house on fire. The dishes were half done. The house was quiet. Jasper was asleep. Nicole stayed with me, just folding blankets in the living room, not saying much. She didn't need to. And then I heard the knock. 3 soft raps at the front door. I didn't move. Nicole looked at me. You want me to get it? I shook my head. I already knew who it was. I walked to the door, opened it, and there he was. Kaysen Hobbs. Still in his Christmas sweater. Hair messy like he'd been running his hands through it all night. No sign of Lacey. He looked at me like he was trying to read the weather on my face. Can we talk? I didn't say anything. Just stepped back and let him in. We went into the kitchen, the same kitchen I stood in just hours before, holding back tears. Same spot I made his plate, poured his drink, set the table for a future he was already destroying behind my back. He leaned against the counter. Hands in his pockets. And for a moment, he didn't speak. So I did. How long has it been going on? He looked away. That was my answer right there. But I wanted to hear him say it. Kaysen. Finally, he sighed. I didn't plan it. It just happened. It just happened. I let out a bitter laugh. Right. Like tripping over your shoelaces and falling into someone else's bed? He winced. It started after the Vegas conference. Remember that week I stayed an extra day? I nodded slowly. The same trip where you missed your flight? He rubbed his face. I didn't mean to hurt you. I looked him dead in the eye. You didn't mean to hurt me? You brought her to Christmas dinner, Kaysen. You called her baby in front of my mom. My dad. Our son. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I still love you, he finally said. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. You don't cheat on someone you love. You don't lie to them, gaslight them, make them feel crazy, and then play the victim when they find out. He walked toward me, like he thought we could fix this with a hug. I stepped back. You don't get to touch me. He froze. And in that moment, I saw it in his face, the realization. That this wasn't one of those fights where we yell and make up later. This wasn't something we'd sweep under the rug. This was the end. He reached out one last time. Ev, please. I messed up. I know I did. But we have a family. We can work on this. And that's when I felt it. Peace. Because I finally knew I was done. I looked at him and said, "You made your choice. You don't get to rewrite the ending just because you're scared of losing. You already lost me the moment you chose her." He didn't argue. Didn't cry. He just stood there, hands at his sides, as I walked to the door and opened it again. Go. And this time, he did. He walked out into the cold night, and I didn't watch him leave. Because I wasn't his anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. After Kaysen left, I sat at the edge of our bed, my bed, but it didn't feel like mine anymore, staring at the little blinking light on my phone. Texts from friends. Missed calls from my mom. One unread message from Kaysen. "I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say." I didn't open it. What was there left to say? The house was so quiet, it felt like it was holding its breath. I could hear every creak in the walls. Every ticking second on the clock. And upstairs, Jasper snored softly, totally unaware his world was about to change. And that was the hardest part. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there. Numb. At some point, the sky started to lighten, that soft blue haze before the sun really rises. The air outside was freezing, but I opened the window and just breathed it in. It smelled like frost and pine. And it smelled like freedom. I looked around our bedroom. The photo on the wall from our honeymoon in Costa Rica. The candle he bought me last Valentine's Day. The robe I wore every night, hanging off the closet hook. I realized then, this wasn't home anymore. It was just a house. So I got up. Quietly. Carefully. I packed. 1 suitcase. 2 duffel bags. Jasper's overnight backpack with his favorite books and his stuffed raccoon, Mr. Waggles. I moved like I was on autopilot. No overthinking. Just what we needed to get through the next few weeks. Kaysen had said he was going to the gym that morning, his new Saturday routine. I knew I had a 2-hour window. Before I left, I walked into the kitchen. Still smelled like cinnamon and ham from last night. I grabbed a pen and a notepad. And I wrote. "You made your choice. So I'm making mine. Jasper and I are safe. Don't contact me unless it's about him." I placed it on the counter. Right next to the coffee maker he used every morning. Then I looked around one last time. No tears. No breakdown. Just peace. I loaded everything into the car and drove off. The sun was rising now, casting long golden shadows on the snow. And I didn't look back once. I called Elliot Lester on the way. Longtime friend of the family, more like an uncle to me, honestly. He was the kind of guy who always knew when something was wrong without you saying a word. When I told him I was leaving Kaysen and needed a place for a little while, he didn't even hesitate. "Come on over. Guest room's already made up. You and Jasper are always welcome here." By the time we pulled up to Elliot's place, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Safe. He met me at the door, gave me a hug that didn't ask questions, and helped me carry in the bags. Jasper ran off to explore the house like it was some kind of treasure map. And I just stood in the hallway, breathing. For the first time in months, I could finally exhale. No more checking his phone when he left it unlocked. No more waiting up at night wondering where he was. No more pretending. I was gone. And he would come home to silence, a half-empty closet, and a note. Not a scream. Not a scene. Just a choice, the same way he made his. Except mine was the beginning of something better. At first, it felt like I was floating. Like I was living someone else's life. Waking up in a quiet house that didn't echo with Kaysen's voice. Making breakfast for Jasper without having to tiptoe around a mood. No arguing over laundry. No pretending I didn't notice the 11 p.m. text lighting up his screen. I didn't know if I felt free or just hollow. So I started small. I got a journal. Nothing fancy, just a little black notebook I picked up at a drugstore. And every morning before Jasper woke up, I'd write something. Sometimes just a sentence. Sometimes a whole mess of angry thoughts and bad words and questions I knew I'd never get answers to. But it helped. Then I found a therapist. Her name was Nellie Soto, soft voice, fierce eyes. She didn't baby me. She didn't nod and say, "That must have been hard." She looked me dead in the face and said, "Why do you think you stayed?" And for the first time, I stopped blaming myself. I stopped calling it a bad patch or a mistake or just a rough season. No. What Kaysen did was a betrayal. What I did was survive it. And I was tired of shrinking myself to make him comfortable. So I cut ties. One by one, I let go of the people who chose neutral. People who still invited him to birthday parties, who posted photos of Lacey and tagged them both with revolving hearts #couple goals. I unfollowed, muted, blocked, deleted. I didn't need anyone in my life who made excuses for him. Then, the rumor came. Lacey and Kaysen had moved in together. Of course they did. Probably thought they were going to play house, start fresh, prove the world wrong. And guess what? They didn't even make it 6 months. One day, I got a message from an unknown number. Just said, "Hey. I'm so sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. If you ever want to talk." It was her. Lacey Castro. I stared at it for a good 2 minutes. And then I hit delete. Because I didn't need her guilt. I didn't need her apology. And I definitely didn't need closure from someone who knew exactly what she was doing. My piece didn't need her name in it. I was too busy building something new. And it wasn't just therapy or journaling. It was real stuff. Like figuring out what I liked again. What music I wanted to play in the car. What I wanted for dinner. Whether I wanted to stay in on Friday night or take Jasper to the movies in our pajamas. Elliot gave us space, but he was always there when we needed him. Jasper started calling him Uncle L, and every time I saw them play catch in the backyard, my heart ached, not from pain, but from hope. It was slow. It was messy. But I was healing. Not because someone else came in and fixed me. But because I finally stopped waiting for an apology and started giving myself permission to move on. It's funny how quiet life becomes once you stop chasing people who don't care you're gone. It's not lonely, not really. It's peaceful. Jasper and I eventually moved out of Elliot's place into a little townhouse on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just 3 bedrooms, a garden that somehow refuses to die, and a kitchen that smells like pancakes every Sunday. One afternoon, a year after I left, I ran into Kaysen at the grocery store. Of all places. He looked older. Like someone who hadn't been sleeping much. He tried to smile, opened his mouth like he was going to say something, maybe sorry, maybe how've you been, maybe some stupid joke he thought would break the tension. But I just nodded. And walked right past him with Jasper holding my hand. Didn't need words. Didn't need closure. And later that night, after Jasper was asleep and the house was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt good, I made myself a cup of tea and sat out on the porch. The stars were out. My phone was off. And I just sat there, breathing. Thinking. Not about him. Not about her. About me. About how far I'd come. About how, no matter how broken I felt in that kitchen on Christmas night, I still had the strength to choose myself. And that was the day everything changed. Because he called her baby. but I chose to never be played again. If you've ever had to walk away to find your peace, hit like, subscribe, and drop a red heart in the comments.